My business partner thought he could steal my dream, but I was 2 steps ahead. The conference room smelled like ambition and deceit, the kind of mix you only find when money's on the table and masks are off. I'd spent 6 months preparing for this pitch. 6 brutal months of late nights, bad coffee, and cold stares from a board that had already decided I didn't belong. Before I continue, like this video and subscribe to this channel to get more interesting stories like this. Today was supposed to change all that. I was halfway through explaining our market entry strategy when I caught the shift. The quiet smirk passing between my business partner, Adrian, and the investors. The kind of smirk that says, we already made up our minds. I kept my voice even, like a man who still believed a room was on his side. As you can see, if we launch by Q3, we capture a 17% gap the competition hasn't noticed yet. Where? James, Adrian interrupted, tapping his pen on the table. That was new. He never interrupted me. Let's pause there for a second, he said, turning to the investors. Before we go further, I want to present a refined version of the proposal. Refined. My stomach tightened. He stood, slick in his navy suit, and plugged in his laptop. My slides vanished from the screen, replaced by his. And then I saw it. The numbers, the projections, the phrasing, all mine, just rearranged, repainted, and stripped of my name. Gentlemen, Adrian began smoothly. This version fixes some of the weak spots in James's initial model. What I'm proposing. I didn't hear the rest. I just watched as he sold my work like it was his own, as the investors leaned forward, nodding, impressed. When he finished, silence hung heavy in the air. Then Mr. Collins, the lead investor, clapped once. Now that, he said, is innovation. Laughter followed. And just like that, the deal I'd built from nothing, from a one-room office and a laptop with a cracked screen, was gone. I stared at Adrian. He didn't even look at me. Didn't flinch, didn't blink. Just stood there, taking in the praise that wasn't his. My throat felt dry, but I forced a smile. Well, I said quietly. Guess that's one way to do it. And I walked out. Nobody stopped me. Not even him. Outside, the cold hit me like a slap. My reflection in the glass door looked calm, too calm. Inside, I was burning. When I reached my car, I didn't start it right away. I just sat there, staring at the steering wheel. Not again. That phrase pulsed in my head like a heartbeat, because this wasn't the first time. 3 years ago, a different man, a manager, not a partner, had done the same thing. Took my product design, pitched it as his, got promoted, and thanked me for my support. I'd sworn then it wouldn't happen again. And it hadn't, because this time I was prepared. I pulled out my phone, opened a folder labeled Foundry, and scrolled through the files. Every prototype design, every timestamp, every contract draft was there. All watermarked, all backed up to a private drive. One Adrian didn't know existed. Let him have his applause. Let him have the moment. Because what he didn't realize was that the demo code, the one that made our app work, was encrypted. He could parade the idea all he wanted, but it would fail the second he tried to run it. I started the car, exhaled slowly, and drove home. That night, I didn't rage. I didn't drink. I just sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and made a quiet transfer. The app, my creation, was already registered under a separate legal entity I'd formed 2 months earlier, Blue Fox Technologies Limited, a name that meant nothing to anyone but me. By the time midnight hit, the transfer was complete. Every line of code that mattered now belonged to me, not the company we'd built together. I drafted my resignation letter, but didn't send it. Not yet. Experience had taught me something. Never leave before the storm hits. By morning, I had 17 missed calls from Adrian. By noon, 36. By evening, 52, plus 3 from his secretary, 2 from our lawyer, and 1 from Collins himself. I ignored them all. At 8:47 p.m., as I poured myself a drink, the phone buzzed again. This time, I answered. James. Adrian's voice came through strained, breathless. What the hell did you do? I swirled the whiskey slowly. I'm not sure what you mean. The app, the prototype crashed, the system's locked out, the investors are threatening to pull funding. Collins is livid. I let a pause hang between us, just long enough for him to taste it. Then I said, maybe it doesn't respond well to theft. James, don't play games, he snapped. We're in serious trouble. The files, the ones I presented, they won't open. There's some kind of encryption. Ah, I said softly. That would be the ownership lock. Standard procedure for intellectual property. He exhaled sharply. Don't do this. The board thinks you sabotaged us. Sabotaged you? I laughed quietly. No, Adrian, I protected my work. There's a difference. He went silent. I could hear voices shouting in the background. Collins, probably. Maybe the PR team too. Then he said it, almost pleading. James, if you come in tomorrow, maybe we can fix this. The investors. I cut him off. You mean the same investors who clapped for you while you stole my work? James, please. This isn't what it looks like. Really? I said, because from where I was standing, it looked exactly like betrayal, and I hung up. The next morning, my inbox was a battlefield. News alerts, internal memos, messages from old colleagues. Apparently, the company was in full meltdown mode. The app failed in live testing. Investors froze the funding. By 9 a.m., I was standing outside the building. The same one we'd leased together 3 years ago when everything still felt like a dream. Inside, chaos. Employees rushing around, phones ringing off the hook, managers whispering. When I reached the executive floor, Adrian was pacing, eyes wild. James, he said, spotting me. Thank God you came. I looked at him evenly. You sound nervous. Collins wants answers, he said. He's threatening legal action. We need to talk before he gets here. No, I said. You need to talk. And right on cue, the door burst open. Collins walked in, face red, tie loose, flanked by 2 other board members. What the hell is going on here? He barked. Adrian, your presentation was a disaster. The system failed every test. Half our investors want out. Adrian turned to me, panic written all over him. James encrypted the files. Without his access, we can't recover anything. Collins's gaze snapped to me. Is that true? Yes, I said calmly. The code you tried to use belongs to me. It's protected under my license. Your license. I nodded. Filed under Blue Fox Technologies. I own the original source model. Adrian's face went pale. You registered it. You can't just. I can, I said. And I did. For a second, the room went still. Collins rubbed his temples. Do you realize what this means? The deal's dead. The company's done. Adrian turned to me, desperation creeping into his voice. James, please, you can't destroy everything we built. I met his eyes, steady. You destroyed it the second you tried to take what wasn't yours. He opened his mouth to reply, but Collins cut in. Enough. I don't care who did what. I just want to know if this technology still works. It does, I said. But not for you. He studied me for a long moment, then said quietly, meet me at the Fairmont Hotel. Tomorrow, noon. No lawyers, no Adrian. And he left. Adrian just stood there, staring at the floor, like he was trying to find a version of reality that made sense. James, he said finally, voice cracking, you can't go against me. We started this together. Yeah, I said, walking toward the door. And we could have finished it together too. That night, sleep didn't come easy. I kept replaying every conversation, every late night in the office, every "trust me, we're in this together." The betrayal hurt, I won't lie. But beneath the anger, there was something colder, a sense of purpose. I opened my laptop again. The Blue Fox prototype booted up perfectly. And for the first time in months, I smiled. Tomorrow, the truth would come out. The next morning, I woke to sunlight cutting across the floor, too sharp for how I felt. For a moment, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to decide whether this was anger or closure. Maybe both. The Fairmont Hotel sat high on the hill overlooking downtown. I'd been there before. Once, years ago, when Adrian and I celebrated our first big contract. He'd raised a glass to the future, and I'd believed him. Now, I was going back alone. By noon, I was in the lobby, polished marble, the quiet hum of money. Collins was waiting, in one of those leather chairs that look like they could swallow you whole. He didn't stand when I approached. Just looked up, expression unreadable. "James," he said. "Sit." I did. For a while neither of us spoke. Then he leaned forward. "I don't like messy stories. And right now, yours is very messy. But I also don't like thieves. And from what I've seen, your partner fits the word." I stayed silent. He went on. "I've been reviewing everything. Timestamps, version histories, your filings with Blue Fox Technologies. You were smart, very smart." "Precaution," I said simply. He gave a faint smile. "No, preparation. There's a difference." Then he slid a folder across the table. "This is a proposal, straight from me. You walk away from Velwyn Electric completely, dissolve your partnership, and we fund Blue Fox instead. Fresh start. No Adrian." I opened the folder. The terms were more than fair, more than I'd ever dreamed of, actually. But I didn't answer right away. I just stared out the window, at the city below. "Why me?" I finally asked. "You could back anyone." "Because you built something real," Collins said. "And because a man who doesn't fold after being betrayed is someone worth betting on." That line hit somewhere deep. I nodded slowly. "All right," I said, "but I want one condition." He raised a brow. "Which is?" "I want the announcement made public. Blue Fox replaces Velwyn, and Adrian's name never touches it again." He smiled thinly. "You really want him to feel it, don't you?" "Not feel it," I said quietly. "Understand it." Collins nodded once. "Done." We shook hands, and that was it. A simple gesture that ended one chapter and began another. By the time I stepped out of the hotel, the air felt different. Lighter. Cleaner. I drove home, humming softly. Something I hadn't done in years. For the first time since Adrian's betrayal, I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about direction. That peace lasted about 4 hours. Then Adrian showed up at my house. He didn't knock right away. I saw him through the window, standing there in the rain, soaked, eyes hollow. When he finally did knock, it wasn't loud, more like he didn't have the strength for anger anymore. I opened the door, but didn't invite him in. "James," he said, voice rough. "We need to talk." "We already did." "Please," he said. "Just hear me out." I crossed my arms. "Go on." He hesitated. "The board voted me out this morning. Collins pulled all the funding. The investors want to sue. I've lost everything." I waited. He ran a hand through his wet hair. "I made a mistake, all right. I panicked. I don't know what I thought. You were always the face people liked. I was just the numbers guy," I finished. "Yeah." His voice cracked. "And when I saw how close you were getting with Collins, I thought maybe you'd edge me out, so I struck first. There it was, the truth, laid bare and trembling. I didn't mean to steal from you, he said. I just wanted to prove I could stand on my own. And how's that going? I asked softly. He didn't answer, just stared at the ground. I could have thrown him out, could have told him to rot in whatever mess he'd made. But something in his face, the kind of brokenness that doesn't fake itself, stopped me. Adrian, I said finally, you know what the worst part was. He looked up. It wasn't losing the deal. It wasn't even watching you take credit for my work. It was realizing that all those late nights, all those conversations about our future, they meant nothing to you. They did, he said quickly. They still do. No, I said, they don't. Because if they did, you wouldn't have done what you did. He wiped his face, though I couldn't tell if it was rain or tears. Then, almost whispering, he said, so what happens now? I stepped aside slightly, but didn't move away. Now, I move forward. Blue Fox launches next month. Collins is backing it. And Velwyn, well, Velwyn's finished. He stared at me stunned. Collins backed you? Yes. Something in him broke right then. I could see it. His shoulders sagged. His eyes went glassy. I guess I deserve that, he murmured. You do, I said. But I don't hate you, Adrian. I'm just done saving people who don't want to be loyal. He nodded slowly, then turned to leave. As he reached the gate, he said without looking back, for what it's worth, I always knew you'd win in the end. I didn't answer, just closed the door quietly behind him. 2 weeks later, Blue Fox Technologies went public. The announcement made headlines. New player disrupts energy market, one article read. Another said, the brains behind Velwyn returns stronger. I didn't smile much through the interviews or the meetings. But when I saw Adrian's name trending, not in celebration, but scandal, I felt that familiar ache of justice done quietly. Collins kept his word. Velwyn's name faded fast, and with it, Adrian's. But here's the funny thing. Revenge doesn't taste like victory. It tastes like silence. For days after the launch, I'd sit in my office at Blue Fox, surrounded by new faces, new ambition, new energy, and still, part of me would remember the old days. The jokes we cracked over instant noodles, the nights we fell asleep on office couches, the first check we ever cashed. You don't erase that kind of history. You just learn to live with it. A month later, I got a letter. No return address. Just my name, written in neat handwriting. I recognized instantly. I almost didn't open it, but I did. Inside were 2 things. A handwritten note that read, "You were right. I lost sight of who we were. I hope someday you build something that lasts longer than revenge." And beneath it, a photo. The 2 of us standing outside our first office, grinning like idiots, holding a sign that said Velwyn Electric, powering tomorrow. For a long time, I just stared at it. Then, I folded the note, tucked it into a drawer, and went back to work. 6 months later, Blue Fox was everywhere. Investors lined up, projects rolling in, and the name, James Harlow, suddenly meant something in every boardroom that mattered. But the truth? It wasn't the success that satisfied me. It was the peace. Sometimes I'd walk past that old building where Velwyn used to be. It was empty now, dust on the windows, letters fading off the sign. And I'd think, maybe that's how it was meant to end. Not with a bang, but with a quiet reminder. That trust, once broken, never quite rebuilds the same. One evening, Collins called. "James," he said, "how does it feel to be on top?" I smiled faintly. "It feels earned." He chuckled. "Good, because the next round of investors wants you in New York next month." This thing's about to get big. I looked out the window at the city lights. Bigger's fine, I said, as long as it stays honest. He paused, then said, that's rare, you know. Men who win and stay honest. I learned it the hard way, I replied. When the call ended, I stood there a while longer, watching the skyline. Funny how success and loss can sit in the same heart without tearing it apart. I thought about Adrian, wherever he was, probably rebuilding, maybe not. And for the first time, I hoped he was okay. Because revenge had done its job. But forgiveness, quiet, private, unspoken, was the real freedom. In the end, I didn't destroy Adrian. I just took back what was mine and walked away stronger. He took my company. I took back my future. And sometimes, that's the only revenge worth having.